Okay. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to today's Lunch with SARAVYC session. It's June 11th, also Pride Month, and that's why we're excited to present this session on research-informed youth sexual health workshops for 2S LGBTQIA plus youth. Julia and Yashvi will be discussing project overview and early insights of this intervention. But before we begin, I want to introduce both of these presenters today. So Yashvi goes by she and her pronouns, holds a Bachelor of Sciences in Integrated Sciences with a focus on global health and physiology from UBC. She has experience in clinical research, project management, and community engagement within the healthcare sector, and brings a strong interest in community health and inclusive healthcare to her work at CERAVIC. And Julia Vokey goes by she, they pronouns, was born and raised on the beautiful island of Newfoundland. She's been working in youth education for the past 5 years and has been working with CERAVIC since September through Planned Parenthood, Newfoundland, and Labrador. Welcome, Julia and Yashvi. The floor is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Sushi, for that lovely intro. I think my co-presenter, Julia, and I will kind of take it from here. So I think everyone can kind of see the screen right now. Looking okay? Awesome. So I'm going to go
Yeah.
forward. There we go. All right, so I wanted to start with a land acknowledgement. I'm coming to you all from the Stigma and Resilience Among Vulnerable Youth Center, named SARAVYC, at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, BC. SARAVYC is on the unceded territory and land of the Coast Salish peoples, including the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nation. And I picked a lovely picture that I really like with the mountains and UBC and all the greenery and water that we have to enjoy, but also remember that we are stewards of this land and to take care of it. So thank you again for the space. I'll pass it on to my co-presenter.
Oh, that's so little. Let me make that bigger. Not make that bigger.
Yashvi, maybe we should
Okay.
go back
Oh, I
to,
can see.
sorry, we should go back to centering the slide.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah, it is too small. Can we just center the slides, please?
absolutely. Give me a
Thank you.
second to find it. Uh, I'm so sorry, y'all. Okay, I'm gonna
You can
present
go back to the
this.
floating head universe.
I need to, there we go. I found my meeting controls. Okay, content only.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Little technical.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. As Sushi said, that I am all the way over on the East Coast of Newfoundland. So this is very Newfoundland-centered one, talking about all of us being here. I'm the only one here, I think. No one else is in Newfoundland giving a show. But we acknowledge that we are living and working on the current traditional Mi'kmaq and Beothuk land in Newfoundland and Inuit and Innu of Labrador. Indigenous peoples have lived and cared for this land for over 15,000 years. Today, Newfoundland and Labrador is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that as settlers on this island, we directly benefit from the historic and ongoing process of colonization. As an agency, Planned Parenthood Newfoundland Sexual Health Center is committed to an ongoing process of increasing our capacity to provide culturally safe healthcare that meets the diverse needs of our Indigenous peoples. Remember that these acknowledgements must be followed by ongoing commitments to these same communities. Land acknowledgements recognize our responsibilities to the Indigenous land and peoples that we share this beautiful, beautiful land with. In the agenda there, yeah, we're doing some introductions there now, welcoming. We're going to go over the project overview of both BC and Newfoundland, some of the advisory feedbacks that we both received in our prospective posts, and how we can all get you guys involved and discuss any questions that any of you may have.
Thank you, Julia. I will start with a little bit of an intro in terms of myself. I think Sushi did a great job of giving an intro earlier, so I'll go into SARAVYC. SARAVYC is an international multidisciplinary and award-winning research center. Since 2006, for over 2 decades, we've studied how stigma, discrimination, violence, and trauma affect young people's health and helped develop and evaluate interventions to foster resilience and health equity. Youth that have been targeted by violence and discrimination experience health challenges, and we focus on identifying protective factors to buffer stigma and improve these health outcomes for youth throughout Canada and internationally. Our main population of focus is 2S LGBTQ plus youth, young people from diverse cultures. By collaborating with youth and their communities, SARAVYC develops culturally and contextually relevant interventions that not only improve health outcomes and equity for youth, but also influence policies and practices worldwide. I'll pass it to my co-presenter.
Thank you. Like Yeshvi and Sushi said, I'm Julia Vokey, she and they pronouns, and I currently work at Planned Parenthood, Newfoundland, at the Labrador Sexual Health Center. It is a non-for-profit charitable organization that promotes sexual health for 2S LGBTQ plus people. We provide education services, sexual health clinics, community partnerships, accessible healthcare. We have harm reduction. We do a queer warm line as well. And as it stands, we're the only sexual health center in the whole province. So we do get a lot of clientele, put it that way.
Thanks, Julia. So I'll go a little bit into this project and why we're here today. Through SARAVYC, we rely heavily on the BC Adolescent Health Survey, the BC-AHS, which has been conducted every 5 years, and we now have access to over 30 years of data. So in a preliminary review of the most recent 2023 BC-AHS, we found that 2S LGBTQIA plus youth reported significant dissatisfaction with school sexual health education. Fewer than half of queer and trans youth felt that sex education they received was helpful. Now, sexual health education plays an important role in improving sexual health and overall well-being. Providing youth with accurate education is crucial for healthy development. This is particularly important for youth who already face significant health disparities. And even when sexual health education is provided, it fails to address the need for a more inclusive sexual health education that can better meet the needs of these young people in a safe environment, especially if they are not yet out. To address these gaps, we propose this project, the development and implementation of inclusive sexual health education programs to be offered at universities, schools, and in the community. This project is called For Youth Like Me. Now, parents also may not have had adequate health education during their school and often have misinformation about sexual orientation, gender identity, and general sexual health. So we've also involved parents in this program through parent education sessions because supportive and well-informed parents can help youth make the right decisions and provide the support that they need. Since we have limited time for today's presentation, I will focus on our workshops that are specifically for 2S LGBTQIA plus youth.
So we began conversations with youth back in the summer of 2025. We tried to keep it really open and casual, more conversational to get people to be a bit more honest about their experience, because I think a lot of people just say what we want to hear, which was it was fine or it was whatever. But we really want to identify the gaps that the 2S LGBT plus community were experiencing in the education that they are being given. So most people had lots of stories. They talked about being excluded or referred to in the wrong way or given advice that was just wrong or even harmful. And it's not to say that people are doing it with ill intention. It is just what they have received. Some of the best quotes, I will say, from some of my advisories were the sex education received while in school wasn't what I was expecting, but they tried. Someone said, my experience with sexual education as a gay student was that it rarely addressed my reality. The focus was mostly on straight relationships, which made me feel invisible and left gaps in my understanding. As an LGBTQ student, my experience with sexual education in school felt limited and not fully inclusive. Most lessons were focused on heterosexual relationships, which made it hard for me to relate or see myself reflected in what was being taught. This sometimes caused confusion and made me feel overlooked. When LGBTQ topics were mentioned, it helped me feel more understood and supported. And it showed how important inclusion education is for students, their confidence, and their well-being. And this one's probably my personal favorite, which was, I feel like I don't know the goal of sexual education anymore. Is it teaching us how to have healthy lives and relationships, or is it just risk avoidance? Because as I'm sure a lot of us even personally experience, a lot of sexual education, even now, is just primarily about abstinence and how to have straight sex without getting pregnant, basically. It can be a lot more than that. We believe it could be a lot more than that, at least.
Yeah, no, thank you, Julia, for sharing that. I'll go a little bit into what we asked similarly for youth in BC. We had same advisories as Julia mentioned, an open format. We asked simple questions to just guide the conversation. And in our advisories in BC, not too different if you can read off of the screen. I'll read some of my favorite as well. A long quote on the bottom left, but something says, Indian school, they went to an Indian school in Singapore, was something that wasn't given much effort. And it was an auditorium of students watching a black and white film, some knowledge of SEDs. And this is my favorite part. But like a crazy thing that happens to other people, you don't know how you get it, just know that it's gross. Now, these responses were in response to the question that we simply asked, did you receive sex ed? And we know that youth are coming from a variety of different places. So another individual, and just again, in terms of time, feel free to take a read at the screen, but I'll read just one more. One individual said that they received no sex ed, they are a newcomer, and they're from a country where it is a taboo. And so I think there's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of understanding of the processes is what we were kind of gaining from our insights during the advisories. And if I can continue, in the advisories, in both advisories, we did ask youth, what topics should we cover in this workshop? And for those of you who can read the screen, I'd encourage you to take a read. We asked youth this question and we got a variety of responses, and I'll continue sharing. So when we asked folks about rights and protections, one individual mentioned that they'd been in the position where people ask name, pronoun, and sexuality, and they don't know how it could be used against them. When we asked folks about consent and their ideas and thoughts, one individual said lack of consent can look different in realistic situations, and they want to be shown how you can safely say no. And lastly, STIs and contraceptives. It's important, is what an individual said. A lot of sex education seems to direct barriers as here's how you don't get pregnant. And queer youth said, that's not applicable to me. And how queer youth participate in oral sex, but you can still get STIs. So these are three general topics among a huge list of 15, 20 plus that we approached youth with, and just tried to get an understanding of what should be covered in these workshops. And as I move forward.
So the topics that we finalized, it's very interesting to see that even though like we are completely different sides of the country, a lot of our feedback and experiences from our queer youth were very similar, and they were looking for a lot of the exact same things. So the number one being was consent and healthy relationships, like how they can engage in those things and see if a relationship is healthy and beneficial for them. Gender and sexuality, like learning different types of ways you can identify, learning different names, things that they can do, how to express it themselves. Rights and protections was the third one that they identified as being important. Knowing what rights they have of a queer person in Canada, what laws are there to protect them. Sex and the law, specifically when it comes to like age of consent and things like that. And then STIs and contraceptives, of course, like Yeshvi said, even if the possibility of pregnancy is not applicable to you, STIs still are. So they're still very important to continue to learn about those things.
Thank you, Julia. So I'll go
Oh.
forward a little bit more in terms of what we proceeded with. So when we come forward with the workshops, all of the things that all the interventions and programs are evidence-based. That's key in the work that we do in the community. So for youth, when we approach this, we decided that we would host 2 workshops in a part 1 and a part 2 manner. And to be able to evaluate this, we put out 3 measures, 3 surveys, one that would be collected before the first session for those that were interested, since it's voluntary, optional, and confidential. And then a second one that would be administered immediately after the second session. And then a third, again, at 6 weeks. The first survey covers just demographic information and general sexual health knowledge. The second survey goes into sexual health knowledge and application, as well as the third survey. So being able to capture these 3 different time points, these 3 important time points as we're going about these workshops, have really helped shape how we can go about bringing more programs like this into the community. In the surveys, 8 indicators were used to assess changes. 8 indicators are used to assess changes in knowledge, and the analysis presented includes all youth who completed the survey at 6 weeks. So far, we've had workshops with a variety of different folks in the community, university groups, across BC, Alberta, and Ontario. And we've got 76 youth who participate so far, and counting. Since we've reported this, we've had a couple more sessions, and we can't wait to have more. In some spaces, we've been fortunate to receive support from the Urban Native Youth Society here in Vancouver, Share Pride and Action Canada, Hummingbird Outreach out in Chilliwack, BC, Rungday Pride in Alberta, and the Chilliwack Youth Health Clinic, Rooted and Resilient, and also UBC Pride. And again, as I mentioned, we're hoping to host a lot more. Now, feedback so far. I want to preface this with saying that this is a preliminary analysis based on a very, very small sample, which limits our ability to really detect and report significant changes. It's also important to remember that some indicators were around pregnancy control and penetrative sex, which might not be very applicable to youth in the survey, especially at 6 weeks. And usually to see change, it requires time. We would also like to highlight that behavior change or application of knowledge can take longer, since young people aren't necessarily regularly sexually active or at all. And some sexual health behaviors, such as condom or barrier use, require active cooperation of partners too. Our present statistics are greater than the typical effect sizes of most sexual health education interventions. Now, with a larger sample next year, we will be able to perform more robust statistical analysis. Can't wait to share that. However, in the first year, the feedback has been predominantly positive, with youth emphasizing the significance of these sessions in addressing barriers, especially since existing programs often don't cater specifically to queer and trans youth. A key strength of our initiative is the evidence-based information that we provide. Now, with the data that I've reported on the page, on the screen, we asked youth at the second and third surveys to rate the program on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being extremely unlikely and 5 being extremely likely, on how their experience with the program was and whether it helped them with the knowledge on sexual health. Youth generally agreed on the appropriateness, with an average score of 4.3. Now, among those participants, 5 scored slightly lower on the third survey than the first, 4 showed no change, but 18 showed improvement, with an average increase of 25%. Now, in our survey, we had 6 questions that measured the improved application of sexual health information provided in this program. 15 out of 27 youth reported higher scores for improved application of sexual health knowledge. Now, our sexual health educators foster a welcoming environment for open conversations and questions about sexual and reproductive health, helping to dispel misconceptions. Indicators suggest improvements in both participants' knowledge and the application of sexual and reproductive health information demonstrating the positive impact of the program and encouraging continued engagement and growth. Now, upcoming. So we're really excited to share this, and I hope this leads us into the discussion portion of this presentation as well. But we're excited to share that we've got a couple more sessions, and we hope to have a bunch more. One that's currently in progress is with the University of Regina in Saskatchewan. We're conducting this online. We've got a session coming up near the end of Pride Month with Share Pride. It'll be a hybrid session. We're excited to host it at the end of June. Alex House in White Rock, BC, we're also hoping to pursue a hybrid session with them. And lastly, we've been approved in a couple school districts within BC. The Coquitlam School District XD43, we're hoping to pursue in-person and virtual sessions with them in fall 2026, as well as the Richmond School District SD38, and many, many more. Now, where do we go from here? Thank you all for being a part of this presentation so far. I want to share that we are hoping to continue our outreach and engagement recruitment with community organizations and spaces, with school groups, as I mentioned, and hoping to getting approval in additional set spaces, as well as university clubs and organizations. Now, we've been trying to implement this in creative ways, whether it be during lunch hour, virtually like this, after school, on weekends, during evenings, and going through organizations, potentially businesses, local businesses that might be interested in supporting this, and just hoping to reach as many youth as possible. So that's the end of the presentation. Thank you all. I'll let Julia say thank you, or we'll wave and smile.
No, thank you. Wave and smile. Thank you so much for listening and participating with us.
Yeah, I'd love to encourage you to take a look at our socials. We've got SARAVYC and Planned Parenthood, Instagram and Facebook. If you are not in a position to share this workshop, to share this recorded session, we really, really encourage that. I'll go ahead and leave the screen on while we move towards discussion, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Yashvi, and thank you, Julia. You know, whenever you both share quotes from our youth advisory or what they're actually saying, it stays with me a lot longer than after this session. I keep coming back to those. So thank you, especially for sharing their voices. I want to open the floor up for discussions and any questions that anyone has. I see that Richard has unmuted himself, so if you if anyone would like to go ahead and ask any questions in the chat or out in the open, please feel free to do so. Or any feedback for this session as well.
Yeah, or any questions about Planned Parenthood or Newfoundland or anything.
All right, I just stopped sharing because okay.
Okay.
Maybe while we are waiting, Yeshvi and Julia, if you can talk more about your outreach strategies, any experiences that you have experienced while doing the outreach of, especially for these workshops. I know some of the folks have joined to understand how we are doing our work in the field. So yeah, if you can talk more about our outreach strategies.
Yeah, I appreciate you for asking that. So in terms of outreach, we initially approached community organizations. We started workshops in December, and we've been doing quite a few. Community spaces have been really valuable because they have active programming, and we're able to piggyback off of what they already have. So community doesn't have to come out to different spaces. We are quite evidently meeting folks where they are. And then going further with the school groups, we haven't started the workshops yet, but we're really excited. Just receiving approval from two big communities within the Lower Mainland. We can imagine the next time we present this, we'd have a lot more to share. And in terms of other creative spaces, I think we've been taking the opportunity to really explore where SARAVYC can also come out into the community, whether that be having a booth at an event or at any community gathering. Back in September, we were part of the Vancouver Park Board's Queer Inclusion event, and that really helped us launch this conversation in a lot of different spaces. So I think we've been employing a lot of creative aspects, following up, and then not only just having one-off sessions, but something that we've been encouraging with organizations is to potentially set up dates with us on a monthly or bi-monthly space, because that way we can have educators lined up ready to go. And for youth, something that we've been seeing is that folks will miss that first session that comes around, and then they'll constantly ask, when's the next one? And having something lined up next has been really valuable so far. I hope that answered. And if anyone has more questions, please feel free.
I see a question in the chat by Vanya asking if SD36 is expected to participate soon.
Ooh, could you, Vanya, would you?
Surrey School District.
Surrey?
I think so.
Okay, so if I can share, there's some school districts that we did not get approval, and that is simply because they do require parental consent for projects and programs like ours. However, with the community that we serve, evidently it would be more counterintuitive, potentially harmful for folks to have to require parental consent to be able to participate in our youth focused workshops. And so SD36, the Surrey School District, unfortunately, is one that we aren't able to partner with. But if things change, if Vanya, if you're able to connect us, if there's something more that we can do to be able to bring this forward to the school district, we'd love to.
Thank you, Yashvi.
Yeah.
I think Richard has a question.
Yeah, this would, I'm sure you already know this. SARAVYC has already published one paper on sexual minority youth experience of sex ed in high schools. I think Jennifer Wallowitz and I published it about, I don't know, could be about 4 years ago now. I forget the title. It was something on the order of, they mostly were talking about other people, I think was the title.
Oh.
But with your findings, we're sort of converging still on this problem of it's just not there. So when it's not, and I was particularly struck by one of your respondents saying, well, it was mostly about STDs, but not about how you get them. The sort of the avoidance of specifics. And that what happens when it is that vague and that non-specific is that it just goes right by people and they just tune out. And that was certainly one of our findings, was that it wasn't about us, and so we didn't participate. We just weren't tuning into it. I'm wondering, can you piggyback on the provincial SOGI programs? Like in those schools that have that, can you present with them or follow them up with this additional sort of research opportunity?
Yeah. Yes. So upon receiving approval from the school district, we are hoping to work alongside the GSA, the SOGI leads in the different districts to be able to offer these through them to the schools.
Good.
So we're pending approval for a lot of this. And honestly, it takes buy-in from a lot of these communities to be able to make it happen. And so for folks that are here, if you're listening, if you've got a voice in any of these in any of these tables, do let us know. We were able to have the Coquitlam School District on board. I think a big part of that was that we got to go out and present at the Tri-Cities Youth Roundtable. So we know there's a lot of conversations happening around the Lower Mainland and beyond across Canada. It just, the buy-in and the ability to be able to present this in all the different ways.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you, Yashvi. I shared the paper that Richard was referencing to in the chat.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Was I anywhere near the title?
They talked completely about straight couples only.
Okay, close
Yeah.
enough.
It's a good title, really good title. All right. Are there any more questions? You can always reach out to us later, reach out to Yashvi, reach out to Julia, or reach out to SARAVYC directly. I've dropped the sign up link for our newsletter here. Um, oh, I see Vanya has one more question. Go ahead. And in the meantime, I'll drop the sign up link again for our newsletter. We do these sessions monthly, different topics. So if you want to attend one of those, it's third Thursday of every month, except this one.
Ooh, I'd love to connect. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate the contact, and I will most definitely get in touch.
Maybe it's easier for me to ask you directly than use the chat box. I just want to make sure that I understood when you were talking about parental consent. Does it mean that you did approach SD36 and they said that youth will need parental consent and that was kind of a deal breaker, or you were not able to obtain parental consent?
That's correct. It was the deal breaker. We don't
Yeah,
want
and I can speak a bit on that because I actually met the school district folks a few years back because we were doing this another intervention which is taking pride, which is a healthy relationship intervention for 2S LGBTQ youth, and they actually met us to work around the policy they have for parental consent. And it is absolutely a deal breaker because this won't be safe for our youth who will be participating because many of them are not out. And so parental consent is something we don't want, and hence we did not take part. But the folks at school district who were talking to us were really excited about the program, and they did say that they would kind of work in among themselves about that parental consent. But for now, that has been the deal breaker for us. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
the question in the chat that I'm just reading. I can read it out loud. Hello all, I'm a certified sexual health educator and I work full-time in my school district as our sexual health education coordinator. To what degree do you think sex ed has to be explicit about sexual diversity versus using inclusive language to discuss bodies and relationships? Oh, I think
I'm thinking about that one.
Oh yeah, okay.
I was like, I don't know who you were regarding that to, Willow. Maybe it was more of a BC question, but my line of work is in sexual education. So I don't know. I'm thinking about your question. Also, Yeshvi, not to cut you off. You had something to say about it as well.
Yeah. I think the conversation.
I think it's a. Oh, sorry.
You're good. Please go, Julia.
I personally, with Planned Parenthood here in our sexual education, explicitity isn't a bad thing. Actually being just like upfront and honest and using the correct language and like one of the Yeshi's quote was, is like, you know what it is, but you don't know how you got it because it's gross or whatever, or avoiding it to have comfortability. That often leads to things being left out. And that's when gaps in education happen. An example of your question I would like to say is like I had someone in one of my advisories who was a trans man and was identifying as a trans man in high school, but when they split up boys and girls for the talk or whatever about learning about their bodies, they made him sit with the girls because it was to make him more comfortable and to learn about his body. But because of that, he actually missed out on a lot, and it actually just embarrassed him more. And he wasn't where he should have been, but you know what I mean? So I think just getting out and saying it as bluntly as you can is probably the best way to destigmatize a lot of the, like, I'll say like naughty words that a lot of people try to avoid when talking about these things. But that's just my opinion of what we base our education off of. here at Planned Parenthood, but I see a lot of teachers in chat. I don't know if that's something that works different where you guys are.
I think you answered that really well, Julia. I think Monica or Willow, was there anything to follow up? If Willow, did that answer?
And also we
Yeah, did
have
I answer?
our lead sexual health education, Kristen Gilbert. We can always take these questions or anything else you have with her, who has designed this curriculum, along with, of course, our expert youth. So yeah, we can always take that question back to her and get back to you, Willow, if there is any additional follow-up.
Really good question. Thank you for asking.
May I say, I think the question is so crucial, and that when we think about these presentations, or those of you who are already doing sex education know this, it's so delicate, and you have the person's embarrassment, sometimes our own discomfort, and then layers of cultural understanding and misunderstanding, and you're walking this tightrope between what is permissible in the context in which we are doing the education. How do you sustain your program without putting it in jeopardy, but be as explicit as you can possibly be? Because in the absence of explicit information, there's just so much more opportunity for distortion and incorrect understanding. I once had the opportunity to discuss with an adolescent client, sexual minority client, about condom use, and I knew that this was, but they were going to start having sex. They had made up their mind. I think they were like 17. It was time. And so we had to have a explicit enough discussion. And I thought, well, I'm going to start you off by giving you some condoms. And I'm old and Catholic, so none of this is comfortable for me to begin with. So I have to train myself to get over my own sort of tripping over myself. And you can use this if you find it helpful. What I said to him was, if it's not wrapped, it's not a gift. Use it if you find it helpful. But it's that, like, and then and then checking was that explicit enough? Did you understand? What did you think that meant? Well, but that is a critically important question, and a very hard one.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
If I can share just a little bit, because from what I shared today was just the youth workshops, and you can check the webinar that we did last month on the parent workshops. It's recorded on the YouTube, but that space we talked a little bit about the other side. And if I can just quickly share, I was presenting about these workshops at some community event, and a parent was reviewing the details with me, and I was like, oh, these are the topics that we can go over. And then they were like, oh, you're doing this for kids too? And I was like, well, yes. And then I told them what topics we cover for kids. And then they basically turned around and said, you shouldn't call this sexual health. Because they were like, if you call it sexual health, people won't come to it. But then, I mean, I bring this conversation out because I think, coming from a parent, if we say stuff like it's youth health, or like, there's a couple of different, I guess maybe we could go with it. But I think in the moment I said, like, you don't call mental health something else, right? Like, physical health something else. So I think, why would we take away the word sexual health? I think in that way, that explicitity of what this is there. But I get the comfortability, because some people wouldn't want to attend a session, saying that I'm going to a sexual health workshop. Maybe they wouldn't want to say that. So I don't know. I just put it out there. What are your thoughts? And maybe it just ties into the stigma within different communities, the shame around this conversation, and all, of course. There's layers to this, and I'm really fortunate that we get to work at this in the space of intersectionality. So yeah, these conversations are super important. I'll pause here. I think I'd love to have everyone else have a space too. I do know we're over time, but if there's any.
I guess not. But thank you, Yashvi. Thank you, Julia. Oh, okay. Not a
Oh,
question.
yay. Oh, on that note, for folks that are here, and because Willow just mentioned it, Kristen Gilbert, our sexual health education lead on this project, is the one who's developed the curriculum, is the one who sat with us through all the advisories to go over what do youth really want to see in these sessions. So Kristen Gilbert is coming to us from, she teaches through UBC to university students, but also through options for sexual health. And that's where our educators for any of these sessions, for folks that are here, if we're conducting any sessions in the community with you or through schools, our educators are contracted through options for sexual health. And so we're able to give them the right resources and guide them to all the right supports.
Thank you, Yashvi. Okay, so this session is recorded, so it'll be uploaded on our YouTube channel. I shared the playlist link here, and I just want to thank you all again for attending today's session. Thank you, Yashvi. Thank you, Julia, for presenting and for walking us through something that, again, as I said, will stay with me for a long time. And thank you, everyone, for your wonderful questions and the discussions. Again, feel free to email us, share feedback, share questions, concerns, anything you have. And hopefully, we'll see you at the next session next month.
Thank you, Sushi.
Thank you,
Thank you, Sushi.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, hi, Vindy. I guess we'll connect at, oh, I think you're muted. I think you're muted.
I'm in Coquitlam, so I know we've had some email back and
Yes.
forth. So yes, we've approved it or got
Yes.
approval. So we should connect in terms of logistics and what that'll look like for September.
Yes, I look forward to it. I'm so
Because
glad you
I
were
am all,
here.
what's that?
I'm so glad you were able to join the session
You
today.
know, I saw it. I'm like, I need to jump on. So yeah,